The idea of this was that everybody loves to go see their favorite bands perform, but maybe it would be interesting to actually get to engage with them further, get to know their teams, how they got to where they are, what's important to them, what's not, and maybe ask some questions and get to see a performance. So with that said, we're really excited to see you all here today, and I will bring out our team. First of all, BODIE Johnson. This is what you get if you ask BODIE for a headshot. This is BODIE. BODIE is, hi BODIE. BODIE's a music supervisor and band manager. He is the founder and CEO of Back 40 Management, and he is the manager for Shakey Graves. Next, we have Keith LEVY. Keith is a booking and talent agent from Paradigm in Nashville. Easily confused. BODIE gave me another photo for Keith, but we didn't use that one. He is also the designated booking agent for Shakey Graves. And finally, this being South by and Shakey being Shakey, you probably do not need any introduction to our next guest, but Alejandro Rose Garcia, also known as Shakey Graves. He's an Austin native. He's an award-winning singer-songwriter, guitarist. He has a new album coming out May 4th that you should absolutely check out, and you might get to hear him play a little bit of that in a while. But with that, we will get started. So we started this in Boston at Berkeley in September, and we wanted to get these guys in front of a really musically inclined, engaged audience. And then that was so successful that we thought, why not take it somewhere bigger? Go to Austin to South by, also really engaged, musically inclined. So we'll get these guys to talk a little bit. I think that one of the most interesting things that I know about you guys, I'm sure there's plenty, but together as a group, you have this really strong, interesting relationship that's not just business, but that's actually very, very friendly and sweet. You're all really adorable together. So Alejandro, can you talk a little bit about how you ended up with these two? At what point in your career you decided you needed to engage the services of other professionals?
Yeah, of course. I think to start with, I would hope that any relationship, be it business or personal, has at least some friendliness and cute boys involved in it, right? No, but yeah, I had done a lot of hard work in Austin as a poor musician, as everybody starts as. And I was in LA being an actor, or attempting to be an actor, and started writing songs that I finally really believed in. So the next logical step was to try and do it in front of people. And that is still something that I'm working on to this very day. But at a certain point, you know, when playing out in front of audiences comes around, there's a huge learning curve, and I decided to do that back here in Austin. I moved back home from Los Angeles and started just playing as many times during the week as possible. And I learned so much by forcing myself to do it alone. I was talking to a gentleman outside from Ibiza who was like, I have an acoustic project and I don't, you know, how do I book shows? And I was like, I don't know, I have no idea. You know, that's something that on a system-to-system basis, you gotta just figure it out day to day. So if someone's like, hey, do you wanna play in my coffee shop to nobody? You're like, good, yes. And then it's like, hey, do you wanna play in my bar to nobody? And you're like, good, yes. And then maybe if you do that 2 or 3 times, people start showing up. And then after years of doing that, a lot of people started showing up. And then emails come with people, and then my brain shuts off at a certain point. And I was like, I can't handle this. And so, did it start with, but you came in? Oh, Keith, booking first, right? So then.
Thanks for remembering,
right.
Molly.
It was in 1908 or whatever. It was
yeah.
so long ago. But yeah, that became really important to actually be able to book shows and specifically on tour. So I would open for bands and travel around. And anyway, Keith was integral to making sure that I would be able to play in other rooms outside of the hole in the wall in the front room. Yeah, shout out to hole in the wall front room. That's right. But yeah, then management, I always say that, you know, it seems like people jump ahead sometimes pretty quickly to, if I get a manager, then I can start doing stuff. And I guess that could work, but I really, when I finally had something to manage, I started seeking management. And I went on a couple dates with some managers, and I was like, no. And then magically, I sort of, let's see, how did this even start? You had heard about me from somebody and was like, I don't like this, right?
Yeah.
He was like, no. But he was very sweet and was working for Red Light Management at the time.
Yeah, house concert.
Yeah, and I was on one of my first tours in a little Toyota Corolla, driving around like a lunatic chasing a van that had multiple people in it, so they could go really far, and then I would try and match that and show up usually just before the show started. And on the way back home, I went through Denver where he lives, and he had invited me to play a house concert at his engagement party. So the first like window into this man's life that I got to see was him around his closest friends and family, and it was a really sweet concert, and I guess I got a lot of good character witnesses to this man as a person, because again, in my heart of hearts, I really hope that all relationships in my life start at a personal level, or at least get there at some point, even if it starts in kind of sterile business. I think it's important that there's a person behind whatever machine is involved. So then we've been happily ever after, right?
Dating pretty hard.
Dating pretty, going steady,
Yeah.
third base. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
5 years ago, almost exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it really is. Yeah.
Wow.
I was just going to add, I think something important that you said is that when you had something to manage
Yeah.
is kind of when you started looking for a manager. And I think in our position as an agent or a manager, we hear from bands or aspiring artists daily, basically, that sort of have this thing in their head of like, if I just had an agent, I would get to where I'm trying to go. Or like I would get on that festival, or I would be on better tours or in better rooms. It's really the opposite is true. It's really like if the public is paying attention to what you're doing and responding to it, that's how your thing is going to grow. And that's what was happening with Ollie and Shakey Graves back in Austin, really.
So you guys did this. It's your fault. The city of Austin was
Yes.
like, cool. And I was like, really?
They gave you your own
Yeah,
day.
cool. Yeah, they did. I've milked that one.
Yep. 7 years in a row now.
Yeah,
Shakey
this
Graves
year,
Day.
Shakey Graves Day was actually, what's his name? The quarterback from the Philadelphia Eagles. It was his day.
What?
Yeah. Nick-
Really?
Yeah.
He took it from you?
Yeah, because he won the Super Bowl.
All right.
Yeah, and he went to Westlake, but I went to Austin High, so.
Oh, okay. Well, he didn't have a party at Anton's.
No, he did not. So, yeah.
Super Bowl, Schmooper Bowl, whatever.
All right. So let me ask you a question.
Yes,
How
Janelle.
did you two meet then, Keith and Ollie?
Handle it.
Do
I don't know.
Do you remember?
No, I don't.
We met in those early Austin days because I was living here, and it was I think it was towards the end of 2010 or maybe the beginning of 2011, and I was playing in a band, and we had a gig at Trophies.
What was the name of your band?
The band was called Slow Down Lady.
Yes. Still on YouTube.
There are videos
Yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube. Bodie will send the link to probably everybody here.
Can we get that on a screen somewhere?
Is that in the slideshow?
No, but I can get
Okay.
back to Brad Pitt.
Slow down, lady.
Please no, please no. So my band was playing at Trophies, which is now Sea Boys,
Mhm.
and there was 15 people there. We played, got off stage, you got on stage, and this was like pre-Suitcase. You had just like a big, massive kick drum and a hi-hat, and like an old beat-up acoustic guitar with a pickup hanging out of it.
Yep.
And I was just like enchanted. I just thought it was really cool. And again, there was 15 people there. Nobody was paying attention. But you had a camera crew with you. It was like 2 or 3 people. Like, with like real camera gear, making like 360 shots and like making this video, which that video's on YouTube.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And I was just like, this guy knows something that I don't, that everybody in this room doesn't really know yet. And just about, I think, where you wanted to go and a vision for what Shakey Graves was going to be. That was still 2 years before we started working together. So I moved to Nashville. I was working at an agency at the time called New Frontier Touring, boutique music-only agency, and just kind of kept my eye on what was going on with Shakey Graves for those 2 years. And it was like every time I would check in, whether it was on YouTube or Facebook or Bandcamp, it was just growing. You know, it was like the view counts on the videos were growing, and you were playing more shows and playing in front of more people. I think there was a tour with He's My Brother, She's My Sister around then. And I don't know, I guess we got kind of reintroduced through the parish.
Yeah.
And started talking, but it kind of goes back to what Ollie was saying. Like, 2 years went by when he didn't need an agent and he didn't need a manager because he was building things on himself, by himself, and you were building this community,
right.
Which I think is so important before you get to the point of I need 10 or 12 people to help me do this thing.
Right.
Because not everybody does.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so how has the relationship between the three of you all evolved over these last few years? It's been a while now.
Well, we hate
Bunch
each other.
of robes.
Yeah, we hate each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Ollie wears robes all the time, so we hang out at hotel rooms and listen to his new music all wearing robes.
This happened one time.
Or
every
mine,
every night.
many.
Yeah.
It's evolved, like our business has evolved, our friendship has evolved. It's a very natural progression. I don't want to, beat the organic word down, but we've all grown. He's helped my business grow, he's helped Keith's business grow, and vice versa. So we've done the baby steps together, and it's not to say there's been no hurdles in anything, but I think we talked about it last time too, but I'm his manager, but it's not to say that Keith doesn't manage as well. And it's a huge collaboration, and at the end of it is still Ollie's path, and all of us trying to allow Ollie or help Ollie or assist Ollie to go wherever he wants to go. It's not our path to create for him. It's our path or our job to get him to where he wants to go still. And we never lose sight of that.
Well, and also something that I think was, again, very personally alluring to me was that both of these gentlemen are as talented as any giant manager or booking agent that I've met, but they weren't at that point in their careers yet, and neither was I. So there was sort of an understanding that as we rose together, if we rose together, that it would mean as much along the way as opposed to just like, oh, you're doing pretty good, but not as good as Ed Sheeran or whatever, But it's that like we all have the same kind of hunger for this business because at times it has to be a business, but it really is a creative endeavor in the first place. So I think that's a really important kind of carrot to dangle in front of the whole thing.
Right.
And I give Ollie a lot of credit for that because I think, some artists or creators or whatever can kind of skip around between agents or managers, don't get any ideas. But
managers or agents out there no, I'm kidding.
We've really grown together. We've grown all of our careers together. And I think a really kind of special and important thing about this project and about Shakey Graves on the business side is that it's all of our priority. And, like Ollie sort of alluded to, like, if he was working with Ed Sheeran's agent, who's the head of music at Paradigm, Shakey Graves might not be as much of a priority, whereas it's the first thing I'm thinking about every day, and same with BODIE. And, we've all been driven by that, and it's sort of allowed us to be on the same page as we've grown.
All right, so Alejandro, you have this strong history of like good decision making, obviously. Like you got this team.
Don't easy.
Professionally
What
speaking.
did you just say?
Professionally speaking.
There's no wood to knock on around here. It's crazy.
Knock on BODIE. So, but you had this, right? You've assembled this team, and you did all this fan engagement that early on your own.
Yeah.
Right? So what drives that decision making? Like how do you showed up with this film crew way early on.
I would say that the key is making it seem like you came up with the idea because that's just like not how stuff happens. I mean, having a film crew was literally, it had to be just my friends were making a video series and taping people, and we're like, do you want this? Because we need subjects to shoot, you know, this is what we do. And that's kind of for a lot of the early videos that went on YouTube that then really helped kind of fuel the everything, basically. All of that was just kind of happenstance. It was like one person finding out about the music and then wanting to do a video series because kind of pop-up shows and Blogatech and everything was really, that was really hot and at the time, you know, where doing takeaway shows or whatever was what every young person with a camera and an interest in music kind of wanted to start doing, because there was a lot of, you know, unique ways to perceive music outside of just through your stereo or in a live show. And you know, from there it's just been kind of one of the initial things that I thought was important too was just trying to think of what interests me about music or why I get obsessed with things, and then just basically trying to treat people just like that, you know. And I've always thought that music is, I'm more drawn to something if a close friend of mine shows it to me or even tricks me into listening to it. And then you're like, hey man, what's this? And they're like, oh, I'm not gonna tell you. And you're like, oh, what is it? And they're like, well, you know, maybe you wouldn't like it. You know, any sort of that makes you like go crazy. So initially I just didn't put much information about myself on the internet. I really just didn't say anything. So you would find a video or maybe you'd hear a song, but then there was nothing behind it. So hopefully if someone really did like it, then even if you spend 10 or 15 minutes looking for information about somebody, you've already put more thought towards that project than being able to read an incredible bio that somebody who doesn't know them wrote for them, and you know, and see 100 press photos. And I mean, I wouldn't recommend that works across the board for everybody, but there is something to a little bit of mystery, and you know, I kind of just prefer a little more mystery in general, just everywhere. Like, I hope that there's more mystery in the world.
And he's also a really smart guy. Don't let his modesty trick you.
Clever, not smart.
Yeah, but I think good talent attracts good talent. So whether it's like video makers or content creators or other musicians, I think they're attracted to good talent, and I think good talent knows good talent too. You sort of have this sense for what is good, and what's kind of above that threshold and below. And it's like, I remember like when we started working together, like these were the people you were hanging out with, whether it was like He's My Brother, Shovels and Rope in the early days. I don't even think you guys knew each other before that tour, but they were just like attracted to what you were doing.
Sure, and I mean, at the same time, it's kind of just that circle of necessity, and then actually just good people. You know, again, like it really does come down to people. I owe so much to just sometimes one person appreciating what I was doing. You know, like back to shout out to the Hole in the Wall, where that's right. That's actually the real hole in the wall right there in the crowd. But I when I first came back to town, I didn't even know, you know, no one outside of my closest friends had any concept that I played music, and they had really no need to, because I used to just do the open mic at the Irie Bean and then be very like, I killed that, you know.
I've played that gig before.
You have?
Yes.
But it's actually pretty sweet, because it's like, you guys know
I killed it.
James, you know Kalu? Anyway, there's this wonderful artist named Kalu James, and he and I used to play there, and a few other people that I'll bump into, and they're like, oh, now I'm like doing other stuff, you know. So it wasn't like the worst open mic in town, but again, putting all of your eggs in a basket where it's basically kind of only the people there are watching, and often it's a little competitive where someone will watch someone else play a song and be like, I can do better, you know. And that's not like really an audience experience. It's kind of more of a rehearsal in front of people. And but when I came back to town, I didn't know what the club was, or like where do I go to play that people actually show up. And the only thing, it had changed a lot even in the couple years I was gone, because Austin is just like, you know, cutting a wide swath. And I knew that Hole in the Wall would still be there because it won't go away, I hope. And I got a gig playing from 5 to 7 in the front room every Wednesday, which is a really dark time to play in a bar because there's nobody in there, and if they are in there, they're serious people. Like 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, time to get really drunk in this front room, and but the bartender there at the time was this guy named Dennis O'Donnell, and he, shout out Dennis O'Donnell, that's my boy, and he was. I would go in and play, and basically, you know, I didn't have enough songs really to. I had to cycle through. I would hope that people wouldn't be there for 2 hours because I would be like, I already played this. But I also, it gave me a challenge to try and do things differently or make a song that maybe I'd only written the first verse of last for 5 minutes so I could just murder time. And the bartender, Dennis, was really supportive the whole time. Like if nobody else in the room was watching, Dennis was actually just genuinely interested in what I was doing, and so he would always be like, Alejandro, you're doing great, you know, do you want a shot of whiskey? And I'd be like, thanks, mister, you know, thanks, of course. And even just that encouragement helped a lot, and then people would come back, and if they would walk in, he would be like, here's your drink, but you should sit down and watch this guy for 2 minutes, you know. And he would be like, oh, I was just, you know, that's just who I am. But in my brain, I credited him for a lot, because even just that little bit of confidence was all it took for me to feel like I could go back for more. And then he later went on to, he disappeared from the bar, and I was like, oh no, where'd he go? And he went and opened the White Horse, which is like now just a powerhouse of Austin barness. And then that got so blown up because now it's like it's tough to get in there on a Saturday night, and he just opened another wonderful bar over on the east side called the Hard Luck. And so I still see him, and we're like, that's crazy that you know.
Yeah.
And you're cool, you know, whatever.
Awesome. So was it people or a specific person who attracted you to Dual Tone? What made you decide to go with them?
Yeah. I mean, that's the same thing. It was like when I started to go out on tour, because I had a really small footprint, I think that was alluring to bands who were smaller. Like when I was even just playing by myself, it's tough to have an opener that's like a 4-piece rock band, because it's tough in the show to go from like, yeah, to some dude like, hey everybody, I'm here to, you know, bare my soul to you. And so Shovels and Rope, you know, is an amazing duo, but they don't want, you know, same deal, they don't want some like hot 4-piece blowing everything up and then they come and strip it back down. Even though their music is like incredible, there's something kind of harrowing about that. And since it was just me and the music kind of matched up, sight unseen, they were like, well, this is a great call, you know? Mm-hmm. And then that turned into me getting to see them play every night for, you know, a few months and just like crying and being like, you're so good at stuff. And that's how, you know, I now have a friendship with them, but I still get giddy when I hang out around them just because they're huge influences on me. But they went to Dual Tone, and I was with them on tour when they were first kind of signing that deal. And again, with labels, you know, labels have changed a lot and are still changing, like what it means to be on a label. And to me, I guess what I've always thought was cool, because as a music consumer, I don't really care what the politics of a label is. That has no bearing on me. Usually you just kind of look at the roster like a fantasy football team or something, where you're like, oh, and you got this on this and this band. And it's like, it would feel cool to be aligned with that. Mm-hmm. And so the music I was making at the time, it seemed like it would be a really great fit for me to align myself with people I looked up to. So that was how I found Dual Tone.
Yeah, and we were getting calls as he was rising and opening up for Old Crow Medicine Show up in Canada and Shovels and Rope. The desk was getting filled and the phone lines were clogging, and everybody was wanting to call us and tell us what they were going to do for him. And as part of my job was being the gatekeeper is figuring out who, like, for lack of better terms, of who's deserving to speak with him. Because when they really came after us, the first conversation was, what does he want to do? And it was a breath of fresh air that somebody asked what you wanted and what we wanted for his career path versus the entire platter that they were going to build for us. And we did that long anecdote before, but we did visit a couple of the labels that we needed to, and we're up in a skyscraper, and you know they're
You remember this story, Janelle.
Yeah, they're telling him that he
Good
can
story.
sell out arenas within a year if they just give them the key.
My soul, give them my
Yeah.
soul. is
And
what
his
they
quick
basically
reaction
said.
was, I don't deserve to do that yet, and my fans don't need me to do that yet. And it was the night before we signed with Dual Tone, and they came and we had a great drink and food in Driscoll. And they were simply like, here's a 2-page agreement. What do you want to do?
Yeah,
And how can we serve you?
the difference was like 2 humans that were willing to talk to you and be people, and then like a faceless entity that's like, I can give you everything. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, the direct quote that I got was, I can pour gasoline on your fire. And I was like, on which part of my fire? What are you talking about? And that whole experience was so wild. At Unnamed Giant Entity, it's like, I got to see what a lot of people go through, I guess, assuming that to make it big, you go big. And again, different strokes for different folks, because if you want to go super big, do it. But it was like, it's a really intense, intimidating process, and you go into this crazy skyscraper, and you get a name tag, and someone's like, oh, right this way, we're ready for you. And you're like, uh-huh. And then they like kind of make you wait, and then you're like, uh-huh. And then they're like, oh, right over, oh, actually, I don't know if we have time. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess we do have time. We could do this thing. And like, but everything kind of luckily got out of sync with their process, where something actually did mess up. Like a bunch of interns were eating Thai food in the room they were gonna scare me in. And they were like, get out of here, interns. And the interns had to like scoop up their lunch and run away. And they had a room that
He's
was...
not exaggerating.
I'm not
any of this.
exaggerating.
Yeah.
Like, turn the lights on, cockroaches all like, oh my God, we're
Okay,
gonna
that
get
part a
killed.
little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. But there was like a room that was like a torture room for me, which is like a meeting room with a stage. And I one of the things that I've always really been turned off by is when someone's like, dance, show me what you have now. And I'm like this is what, that's just not my jam at all. I think that I would never want to make someone do that either. That's just my personal thing. If someone plays music, I'm not like, well, here's a guitar. Let's do this. It's like, do your thing, and I would love to see what that's like. But the plan was I had to bring my guitar, and I was going to have to blow minds. And when you're in there, your brain wants to win. You're like, even if you don't want to do this, the moment you get in there, you're like, I'm going to go, these dudes are going to freak out. And everything kind of went to pieces quickly, where the main guy had a bulldog with him the whole time. And like the bulldog got a hold of a water bottle, and it's got too much.
Yeah.
It was like that sound, but like an empty water bottle doing that. And this guy's telling me like, I'll change your life, it's over for you. And this bulldog is right here like chewing this water bottle in my face. And I was just like, what is happening here? And Bodie's across the couches like, I don't
Knowing
know.
this is just going downhill so quickly, and just watching him being attacked.
And just sort of like deflecting, like ching, ching. And then they magically ran out of time. Like, we ran the clock down, and the guy had to go do other giant business stuff with whoever. And he was like, he's like, we'll come back tomorrow. And tomorrow everyone will be in this room and you'll do it. And I was like, yes, sir. And we left and went to a bar down the street. And I was like, do I have to go back there tomorrow? And Bodie was like, no, I don't know.
And the next day we signed with Dual Tone.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, and then they called and were like, good job, you like,
Yeah.
it was nice to meet you, and we'll, next time, think of us. And I was like, what? Wait, was that just all like a partial test of some sort? So I have no idea, but that was a mind-shattering experience.
It works because they came in on his level. And it was like, let's
Dual
try-
tone.
Yeah, Dual Tone. And let's try this. So it was a simple agreement, and it was a one-off. And they were like, if we succeed together, let's continue and reevaluate. And if not, let's go and be. So they let the ball be in his court, and so we did.
Right. And so your new album that's coming out in May is on Dual Tone.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because it's different from the stuff you've done before.
Yeah, it's the same process. It's just, it's a different sounding album than other records I've put out, but this is a continuous trajectory, at least as far as I see what I create. So it's like, the first record I made in my house over the course of probably like 5 years, or within that 4 years at least, because all the songs, I just waited until they were done and I liked them, and then I compiled them all. And I've always wanted to go back to that, you know, like when I finished that record, or when I decided it was a record, I knew that you can't ever go back and remake your first thing you put out. And I really wanted that to be something that I could look back on in the future and be like, well, you did do that, you know? So even if I was, you know, fully in drag at this point and singing like opera music, I could still be like, well, I did put that one album back, so I guess I could go back to that style if I needed to. But it was just the process of making stuff in my house because I like making stuff. So this record, as big and different and musically adventurous as it is, I still made it myself. You know, I produced basically the whole thing with serious help from other people, but I also, you know, taught myself really how to work with tape and how to work with Pro Tools and build and you know, like I like building stuff. I really adore making as opposed to just dancing monkey action, you know.
Well, didn't you even design the cover art?
I did, yeah, I designed.
We'll show that too. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Talk it all about that.
So that is still up in my house. That's it's about 4 feet deep and about this wide. And it's kind of based on this system that Disney used to do with glass panel animation, where they built this crazy camera that had like glass slides in it, and then they could move the camera through it, and it had this natural 3D effect. So when I wanted to make this picture, I really wanted the first 2 records I did, both the covers are black and white, and the way that this record sounds, I really wanted to have it be almost overly vivid color to really flip the whole identity of the record in the first place. I also have never shown my face on the cover of a record, and on this, my face is in it twice. So I'm actually peeking in up in the top corner, and that's actually the size of this model. So initially, I wanted to make a set. I couldn't figure out how to make a set, and I was doing this cool project with Robert Rodriguez, another local dude, and just some guy, and I was doodling and trying to conceptualize how I would take this photograph, and he came over and was, you know, if he sees you doodling or whatever, he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm trying to do this album cover, and I have this concept, and I don't really know how to do it and build a set." And I was kind of trying to bait him into like, "Well, I'll build you a set," and he didn't do that. And instead, he was just like, "Well, why don't you use miniatures?" And I hadn't thought of that. And so my brain started flipping between the slide animation thing and then real models. So what you see is like 4 plexiglass panels that I disassembled picture frames, and then painted these layers going backwards, and then at a certain point, it's actual little train sets. So like that little house in the distance is a real little thing. That bar, that tree back there is a little train model tree, and then the road is made out of clay, and like the back is these 2 paper mache mountains I built, and then the sky is even like a red piece of plastic that I poked holes through, and then put a black light over, and the clouds are painted onto the panels. And yeah, so, you know, whatever, you gotta make stuff, I guess. But this picture alone is kind of what I wanted to do with the record also, is that it's all tangible, and it's practically lit with train set lights, where I was like, I want to practically light this thing and take a photograph of it. And
Told you it was smart.
Right?
clever, maybe. And the way the record is too is like that. It sounds, you know, it sounds giant at times, but if you saw how we did it, you'd be like, really? It's like, yeah, that's me running down a hallway with a tin can tied to me screaming. And you're like, wow, good reverb, that's great. You know? So.
Fantastic. All right, so we don't have a whole lot more time, and we do want you to dance or play or whatever it is you're going to do.
Shit.
I hate to ask you to do that now, but we have time for just a couple of questions, if people have some. If not, we can keep. Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Hello.
Hi.
You said that you had this building of mystery, which I totally fell into, by
Yeah,
the way.
gotcha.
But I wanted to know if that had anything to do with your acting career, and if you were worried about people seeing your acting career and going, well, he's not really legit because he's an actor.
Yeah.
Did it start with that?
I wouldn't say it started with that, but I really wanted to make sure that people didn't bring my life into my musical project. I know that sounds weird because at times that's exactly what people want. They want to be like, this is me and this is what I do. And I wanted the music to actually be more important than who was behind it. And that was just kind of the whole point. It was like, I do stuff, but I really didn't want you to be like, oh, really? You now have done this? It's like, no, I do stuff. I just do stuff. So please don't worry too much about my other stuff. Just focus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good call, yeah.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much.
Of course,
And
thanks.
I'm just curious how you came up with your name, Shakey Graves.
Oh, this old chestnut. I was living in LA, and I had read a story about Jeff Buckley and how when Grace came out, he used to be able to, he basically skyrocketed from playing in coffee shops and stuff like that, and then he sang at his father's funeral, and then everyone was like, you did what? This is what your voice sounds like? And, he played, but it really, that first record and everything skyrocketed him way above what he was doing, and according to this interview or whatever, he missed the smaller rooms and being able to play kind of without, just like I said, without his identity or his weight having any effect. He wanted to like surprise people for the first time. And so he went on some tour called like the Ghost Coffee Shop Tour or something like that, and basically made up a different name at every place he played. And I read this long list of these horribly stupid names, and they were great. And I was like, that's great. So a bunch of people saw Jeff Buckley play, and it was called like Fairy and the Ferrymen and all these weird stuff like that. And so I had that idea of an alias floating around in my head, and was looking for the right thing, and then was really lonely out in LA, and my best friend called me and was like, hey man, I'm working at this music festival, which is Old Settlers Festival, and do you want to come into town? And I really did, but I have so many loving family members and friends here, I didn't want to call them at all. I wanted to go to the music festival, and I wanted to go back to LA. And that was all I wanted to do. I didn't want to like come back and do anything but just hang out for the weekend with my best friend. And so he was like, don't worry, I'll pick you up at the airport. Picked me up at the airport. He didn't have a pass for me, so we drove to the gate, and I got out and got in the trunk of his car, and he drove me into the festival in his trunk and was like, well, now you can't leave. And so I just stayed on the grounds, and we hung out all weekend, and that was right when I was writing, so I was dragging my guitar around a lot and playing, and was getting that response for the first time of like, what is this? And one of the days, as happens at music festivals, a tripping man, tripping on something, came stumbling into our campsite and was like, woo, flying high. And we had a long kind of nonsensical conversation. He had like a big hot beer in his hands, and he kept talking about it being whiskey. He was like, oh, my whiskey's so good. And it was like a huge Miller High Life. And we're like, we know, buddy, that's good. He's like, you want to try the whiskey? And we would all be like, that's great. He's like, I told you, man. I told you it's so good. And he like, oh, man, blah, 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 and we kind of just said the same stuff back to him. And he's like, you're good people, bye-bye, and started to wander off. And kind of the last thing, he's like, so beware of his spooky wagons. We were like, what? And then we started joking around about the name Spooky Wagons and how it would be kind of a funny Nashville country guitar picker name, like Waggins. So we all made up names, and I picked Shakey Graves, and there was Spooky Wagons and Spinster Jones and Solomon Doors and the infamous Droopy Wieners, that was my friend's brother who was asleep at the time, so we named him. And I still get yelled. I get at least 50 times a year, someone just in the darkness at a show just goes, Droopy Wieners! I'm like, yep. So anyway, that was later on when I would go and play my guitar and someone asked me what my name was. I tried it and was like, Shakey Graves? And they're like, cool, nice to meet you, Shakey, anyway, and moved on, and I was like, holy shit, this is great. Let's do it, let's stick to it, and so.
Yeah, that's so great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we'll do one more question, and then we'll get you to play.
Yeah, I'm sorry to, I'm really short, sorry. I'm sorry to take away any time from your playing.
No, it's all right.
You're just incredible. But I was just wondering, as an artist, in a time that is so hyper-focused on social media and representation, just image and building like this kind of aesthetic for yourself, you
Sure.
know, you seem very down-to-earth, like a people's person, how to kind of maintain that authenticity in a time that's very superficial, especially in the music industry when and being being a female artist, like
Yeah.
very hyper tuned on how you represent yourself.
I have no idea.
He says no.
I do say no, but I use social media. I love my phone and the internet, and it's like I'm certainly not impervious to any of this pressure whatsoever. And on one hand, if you can separate, as I have had to do for my own sanity, kind of my personality and my performance, and still keep them tied together, because I believe what you make is what you make, and you should have your personality tied to your work, no matter what it is, be it art or whatever. I think it's important to be human. It's also important to be able to put a wall between you and something that hopefully, if it goes well, can be work, and unfortunately, part of music work can be self-promotion, which is still like, I hate being slutty, like in a social way, like, hey man, come over here, check me out, I got this stuff, like, oh, is that my nipple? I don't know, maybe it was, it's like, it's tough, and there's a level of it that can be, there have been artists that do amazing jobs of that, that doesn't seem cheap, and it's exciting, there's David Bowie's and people that image is just part and parcel with this astounding artistic expression. But I mean, sometimes I just have to go away from my phone. I can't read what people say, or I can't respond, and it's just being able to kind of ebb and flow between understanding that in music, part of it is social, and like someone like you, I wouldn't maybe bump into you on the street, but if I did, I wouldn't be like, don't touch me, But sometimes I feel like that, and it's like, I feel like it's important to be able to step away from your own tough times to realize that if you make something and someone likes it and is excited about it, maybe it wouldn't hurt you to put a photo of yourself on the internet being like, hey, So I don't know. Be good to yourself and be safe, and just be yourself as much as you can. If you can make what people like about you be you on the inside, then it will never be hard to promote yourself.
Thank you.
All right, what do you say? Can we get you to do a little
Dance
couple of
monkey.
songs?
Okay, we got 11 minutes. All right, I can do. Okay. Whoa. I watched Friday the 13th Part 8 last night. Jason Takes Manhattan, and so I want to just go. Great movie. You should watch it. All right, here's I'm gonna play you guys some new songs. This is a song about being hard on yourself all the time. I don't remember it already. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time. Same old shoes on the same old feet, same color tie every day of the week. Shampoo, conditioner, rinse and repeat. Drip, dry, do it again. I tell my woes to the knife and the spoon, dining alone at a table for two.
One glass of wine is plenty of time to dream about all of the things that I'll never do. Well, I wonder what it's like to fly a plane, to meet a girl on Friday night and wake up next to her on Saturday. Or to swim across the ocean blue, to walk a mile upon the moon, to wear the crown and sit upon the throne. But it's getting late, this restaurant is closing, I guess I better go. Yeah, I wander through the city, whistle a tune, walk into a bar and ruin the mood. A dirty martini with an olive or two, shake, pour, do it again. A couple more drinks, now they're kicking me out. I always get in trouble when I open my mouth. I stumble on home, fall into bed, drift off into my head. I wonder what it's like to fly a plane, to meet a girl on Friday night and wake up next to her on Saturday. Yeah, to swim across the ocean blue, to walk a mile upon the moon, to wear the crown and sit upon the throne. But it's getting late, the sun is coming up, off to work I go. Same old shoes on the same old feet, one track mind, one-way street. Nothing's gonna change for the same old me. Eat, sleep, do it again. Yeah, eat, sleep, do it again.
Thank you. So even still, this is definitely the first time I've played some of these songs with the suitcase set up, which is why this thing was invented in the first place, so I didn't get talked over at bars, so I could be like, "Mrrr." All right, let's see. What do I want to play now? All right.
Well, I might be the worst, but you'd know the best. You drive the car, I'll do the rest. The getaway was quick and clean. We make an awful perfect team. You never know how fast you run until the bullet leaves the gun. Everybody on the floor, this is a stick-up. Why would you sink so low just to get high? Oh, crime, it's a young man's game. I want to take you where I'm going, but half the fun is never knowing if and why we lost our way, to find that everything in life is worth its price, but there's nothing you can't steal. Well, I couldn't stop, I couldn't say, My innocence was locked away. It's far too late, 'cause now you've seen all the wicked parts of me. The bully got the girl next door. I had it all, but wanted more. So give me everything in the register. Why would you sink so low just to get high? Oh, crime, it's a young man's game. I wanna take you where I'm going, 'cause half the fun is never knowing if and why we've lost our way, to find that everything in life is worth its price, but there's nothing you can't steal. Young man, what did you do? I saw your face on the 6 o'clock news. Had to get your 15 minutes somehow. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Fear not unbearable love. Oh, what a life of crime. It's a young man's game. I wanna take you where I'm going, yeah, 'cause half the fun is never knowing if and why we lost our way, to find that everything in life is worth its price, but there's nothing you can't steal. No, nothing you can't steal. No, nothing you can't steal.
Thank you. One more? All right, I think we got time for one more. Okay. Hold on. Close. This is how you kill time. run the clock down. All right, let's see.
I don't wanna die, gonna live forever. I just wanna talk tough, look mean, life is good at 17. But one thing that I know is that you don't know a thing about me. You were the young, dumb, chosen one, now you shake your head and say, kids these days, kids these days, wasted all the time, but nothing lasts forever. Maybe I should give up the good fight, change my image overnight. Oh, but one thing that I know is that you don't know a thing about me. I am the young, dumb, chosen one, losing in the loveliest way. Kids these days. Ooh, kids these take an easy Millie and blow it in the night. Well, tell me that I'm pretty, tell me that I'm nice. Yeah, I know you can see it in my eyes. You can see it in my eyes. Yeah, you can see it in my eyes. You can see it in my eyes. Oh, 'cause everybody tries. Yeah, tries to be somebody. To be somebody's wet dream, prom king, golden boy, new toy, mirror, mirror on the wall. What's the meaning of it all? Oh, life is a honeymoon phase. Kids these days, kids these days, kids these days. Ooh, ooh. Thank you guys so much. And thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much. Do people have other opportunities to see him throughout the course?
Friday.
Yeah, Friday night he plays at Auditorium Shores. Big lineup that night, Levy.
I think he plays at, what, 6 or 6:25, something like that. But there's a band called Camp playing out there.
Albert Hammond Jr.
Albert Hammond Jr., Shakey, and Nathaniel
Nathaniel
Rateliff and the Night Sweats. All free. Auditorium Shores, Friday.
All right, so there's your next
Crazy.
chance. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.